Welcome, everyone. We got Buddy here today, and he's going to share a little bit more about his experience using the Kinetic method. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Hello
Good to
from
have you on.
Guatemala.
Yeah. So before we get a little bit deeper on certain things, give us a little bit more context around your lifestyle, like age, height, weight, traveling, what you do for work, so people get the full context understanding on your environment and the circumstances before we look into the details of the transformation.
Yeah, so I started a couple months before my 41st birthday. And my background is my entire adult life I was a Marine, a United States Marine officer, and so fitness is part of the lifestyle, right? But nutrition's not part of the lifestyle. So um, you know, I never really had a problem with weight or fat or anything like that until probably my early 30s, when the stuff that I was doing in my early 20s, I was still doing the same stuff. It just resulted in just a lot more fat. I mean, it wasn't like I lost muscle, and I wasn't really that much slower like running. It's just I just had lots of extra fat that just I was just like, what the hell, right? um and so my lifestyle when I started this, so I transitioned out of the Marine Corps, still work out. I mean, ride the bike 2 or 3 times a week and do some lifting. But mostly, I'm a real estate investor, and so spend most of the time in front of a computer as far as during the day. And so that's kind of the lifestyle. I got 2 little kids, wife and 2 little kids, and we live in Southern California. So yeah, that's kind of the routine. That was the kind of the routine.
Perfect. You mentioned you never had an issue dropping weight in your 20s, 30s. Fitness was always part of your lifestyle. What happened then as you approach the 40s?
From the perspective of fitness, nothing. I mean, I still had the same workout routine. I've had the same sort of workout routine. It's a variation of the P90X routine for a long time, for a decade. So the fitness didn't change at all when I got out of the Marine Corps. To be honest, neither did the nutrition. But what did change was I just started packing on fat.
And so you had the P90X modification, and fitness was part of your routine, but nothing really changed with nutrition, and the weight started back on quicker, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And would you say that was the reason why you then reached out and said, okay, I'm gonna change something? Or
Yeah.
did you?
I had a friend of mine, Matt Owens, who he ended up having a lot of really good success. And he's, I mean, you don't normally, you have to find someone that you identify with. If like, that's what I've found, is if you're looking to accomplish something, the easiest way that you can sort of short circuit the due diligence that it takes to research everything that's out there, is to find somebody that you identify with, that's like you, who's had the success that you want, and then do what they did, right? And so Matt Owens is another successful business owner in his late 30s, early 40s, and he had a great success. So honestly, that was the impetus for it.
Talking about success, if we look at your transformation, what would you say maybe tangible, like the weight, scale, body composition, but also some of the intangible things, energy and so on, were part of your success during this journey?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, I mean, the tangible uh, result is easy, right? I started at 225, and I think 6 months later, or whatever, I was at 195, which I hadn't been at 195 in forever. And it was all fat, right? Because I had gained muscle, so it was all fat that I had lost there. But what was more impressive to me was that it was not a diet. Like I was not starving. I never starved. In fact, when you guys had me do what's called a diet break, which is where you eat more food, I had difficulty eating all that food. And I remember complaining about it. I was like, this sucks, right? I'm just eating so much food. But I never had a problem with hunger or anything like that. And it was I mean, it got to the point where it was pretty easy to just like to track the macros and to know what I can eat and what I can't eat. And, you know, and it wasn't like I was ever sitting there thinking, man, I really wish that I could live a happier lifestyle or anything like that. Like if I wanted to have a drink, I'd have a drink. If I wanted to go eat in and out, I'd eat in and out and I'd just track it. But it was interesting because this psychological change happened where like I remember one time I love In and Out, right? The burgers and the fries and all that stuff. It's a Southern California thing. And so it's just burgers and fries, right? But you can track it in MyFitnessPal. And so you put it in there and it like it just annihilates your fats. And like you know what you see is that like you can have that, but literally the rest of the day, all you can eat is rice and beef essentially, right? Or rice and some type of high protein or maybe a protein shake. And so what happens is you're like, is it worth it? Is it worth it to destroy all of my macros for the day by doing this one thing? And it's like, you know, I mean, sometimes, yeah, most of the time not. And so what I found is I was eating so much less restaurant food and so much of my own free will because it gamified it and it made me want to do it. And, you know, I mean, that just I didn't really change my lifestyle too dramatically. And I didn't change it in any way that I didn't want to. And, you know, even a year later, half a year later, when I was older, like you know, the weight was off and I definitely had more energy and looked a lot better, um, felt better about myself as a person, as a business owner, as a man. Like it's amazing how much of a difference psychologically that can make. Because I don't like I'm not vain. I'm not one of those guys that like I would, you know, and not no offense to anybody that wants to do this, you do you, but like I'm not a guy that'll take my shirt off and oil myself up and flex in front of other guys. Like I just that's just not me, right? So it's not like I wanted to do that or to impress anybody or to show anybody up or anything. It was just for me. But I'll tell you, even if it's just me looking at myself, it still made a huge difference about how I felt about me, right? And so call it vanity or not, it made me want to be a better person, you know? So it was awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful how you share that. And the internal shift seems to be more important to you than the external perception. Even though the external perception of yourself, you being you and looking in the mirror is important, but that internal shift, I think, just the way you describe it is very, very powerful. And I think people can see why it was easy for you to stick to it, because I'll say not everyone will say it's easy, but I think that connection that you just made there has had a significant impact on your results as well.
I'll tell you, I deliberately went into this a little differently, I think, than a lot of people do, because the idea is if you go into something, you go all in, and it's like, let's get the maximum results possible. And I know if I were a coach, that's the people that I would want. And because it's like, whoa, amazing transformation, whatever. And I can do that. I've done that before, but I didn't want to do that this time. I wanted to, for the first time, see if I could do something that is like imminently sustainable. Like there's literally no reason whatsoever in my mind that I couldn't do this for the rest of my life because I didn't do it perfectly and still got results. And that to me is a hack that I have been looking for, honestly, my whole life. And so there's no reason I wouldn't do this, live this type of lifestyle forever.
Beautiful. And that's the point, right? Like, why would you start and do it if you know you can't sustain it forever? What's the point, right?
Right. Yeah, agree. So yeah, it was awesome. And I appreciate it. And you know, having Raul like help with the workouts and help with the, you know, I mean, just the it's funny how accountability works because I'm my own person. I can do whatever I want, regardless of who I hire to tell me to do whatever. I can do whatever I want because it's a free country. But if I have somebody that is checking in and being disappointed if I don't do something or cheering it on if you do something, like it does create a shift in your mind that like, yeah, I do need to do this because this is what I've promised another human that I'm going to do. And so the accountability is a huge part of it. It's a huge part of it. Um, And so I think, you know, having that, like having the structure of understanding how your body works and how you can maximize, you know, the benefit of food and everything like that, but also having the accountability in place. Yeah, I think it's a great system.
Thank you. Can only be as great as the students. So
Yeah,
you put in
sure.
the work, it works. Don't
Yeah,
put in the work, you get exactly out what you put in.
yep, agree.
One
And
last
that's what I respect
question.
as well.
Yeah, one last question for you. Since you said initially, like your friend Matt Owens, he kind of recommended it. So now you're like in his spot. So someone watching this thinking like, should I do it? Maybe I can do it myself. This guy's online. Like,
Sure.
what's your words of advice or words of wisdom to that person?
Yeah, I can tell you, like I'm about to, if you ask anybody who knows me, if I'm disciplined, just try that. Just see what happens, right? You're gonna get a response of like, oh my God, this is the most disciplined guy you've ever seen in your life. However, I just told you how I got to a point where I was 25, 30 pounds of fat, overweight. Like, how does someone do that? A Marine, right? I'm not like Matt Owens is a nasty civilian, right? You expect him to be fat, but not a Marine. And yet here I was, right? So if discipline is all it took, then I would never have gotten to that point, right? And if, you know, if it's just a matter of willpower, which, yeah, sure, right? And you already know the secret. That's the thing that I find so hilarious. It's like, here's a new secret to losing weight and to getting, bro, the secret has been known for hundreds and hundreds of years. Like, don't eat too much, eat good food, work out, get plenty of sleep, drink water, right? Everybody knows the secret. If that was all it took, then everybody would have six packs. Everybody would be super lean, right? It's all you're doing is you're combating human nature. So if, like, for me, the reason it spoke so much to me, it's like, hey, if you're somebody who's been fit, you used to be really fit and athletic, but you're now in your mid to late 30s or early 40s, you're successful in business, you're crushing it in other areas of life, but you put on a bunch of fat and you don't like that, then you should try this. And I was like, oh my God, that's like all of those things are me, you know, and then it worked. And so, you know, I mean, my guess, if I were to talk to myself and say whether or not you should spend the money to go do this, more importantly than the money, right? Because if you're successful in business, the money is fairly nominal. It's the time and the effort that you put in, right? Are you willing to put in the time and the effort? And should you put it in doing this? And my answer would be, well, is what you're doing right now working? Right? Are you where you want to be? If you were, you wouldn't be listening to this. And so, you know, I mean, when I look back 6 months ago and I look at the picture that I took 6 months ago, uh, I'm like, God, like it almost looks like somebody, like I dressed up like somebody else, right? Like an actor, right? And I'm like, it didn't feel like that then. It didn't, I wasn't looking at myself being like, oh, this sucks. It didn't feel like that. It just,
It's a
I
death
don't
by a
know. It's
thousand
weird.
cuts.
It is because it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
happen fast.
No,
It happens so slow that you can barely see it. And you just rationalize it like, ah, yeah, well, I know I could work really hard for a couple of months and get back to where I was. And then you just don't, you know? So anyway, yeah, I think for me, it was a no-brainer. I'm extremely glad that I did it. And like I told you, even before we started recording this, as soon as I'm back from Central America, we're gonna do an elevated version of it where I want to gain more goals and you know, and you know, I, before my 42nd birthday, not just be in the best shape of my life, but being in dramatically, significantly better shape than I've ever been in, even in my 20s.
that's the plan. And soon we'll
Awesome.
see mission accomplished. So thank you so much for
Awesome.
doing this and sharing with everyone a little bit of the not just your success, but really what happens behind the scenes and the way you think. And I think people can see why you achieve those results just with your certainty, clarity, and your mindset. So thank you for being
Hmm.
here and recording this with me.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.